Hello and welcome to this Getting Started video series. This series is designed to help you get started on your recovery journey. So today we're going to be talking about step 7. Let's look at that together right now. Step 7 says, humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. So as we work step 8, we become willing to have God remove these defects of character. So in step 7, we're also acknowledging and humbly asking Him to remove our shortcomings. So what's the distinction? How is step 7 different from step 6? The main thing is recognizing that character defects specifically are things like pride. Shortcomings would be the ways that we fall short. Ultimately, let's say my pride led me to behave in a way that was ultimately, a shortcoming. So these two actively work together. So we're not only acknowledging kind of like the root characteristic, but we're also acknowledging the effects of that characteristic when we behave in a prideful way or a deceitful way. So this is ongoing work in relationship to what we already started in step 6. It's not only dealing with the actual characteristic, it's actually dealing with the effects of that characteristic and the ways that we have ultimately fallen short when we choose to play God. It's another reminder that we are not qualified to be God and that we need His help. But it's also important as you work this step to remember that God chooses through Jesus to forgive us, to restore us. And therefore, acknowledging and humbly asking God to remove your shortcomings is also recognizing that He wants to, that He desires to, that He is actively at work in your life to help you align more fully with who He's designed and created you to be by ultimately living and doing life with Him instead of continuing to try to do it apart from Him. I think it's important for us to recognize that when we do life apart from God, we're not capable of living up to His standard of justice and perfection and holiness. These attributes of God are important because we want to know that we live with a God who is just, who doesn't dismiss or ignore or minimize the wrongs that have been done to us, but who also doesn't dismiss or ignore or minimize our wrongs. He seeks justice, and that justice is found through Jesus Christ. When we recognize God as holy, when we recognize that He is just, we realize that we on our own are not capable of living up to that standard, and therefore we fall short of it. But it doesn't mean the standard is bad. What it means is when we are willing to honestly acknowledge that and humbly come to God, we acknowledge that He wants to help us. He wants to restore us to our right position, that we can live according to His will and ways, and ultimately live the way that we were designed and created to do the good things that God designed us to be able to do, to love and serve the world around us from a genuine and authentic motivation rather than a self-centered one. This is an important part of our recovery journey because we have to recognize that when we fall short, and we still will, God eagerly wants us to turn to Him for forgiveness, to come to Him humbly and recognize our need for His help. And the more we turn to Him, the more we come to Him humbly, the more we actually wake up and become more aware of when we're being tempted to ultimately go back into these old patterns or utilize these old character defects. So when worked properly, step 6 and step 7 actually help motivate us forward to step 8. And that's where we're headed next.